Hello, Moritz and Tim. It's a pleasure to have you guys on today. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Jason.
Thanks, Jason. It's our pleasure.
Yeah. So can you guys tell me a little bit about your film, September 5?
So I can give the one-liner,
Yeah.
or to do it. No, in our movie September 5, we are telling the story of what happened on this tragic day in Munich, told from a very distinctive perspective. It's a true story of a group of sports broadcasters of ABC Sports that had to make the switch on this day from reporting on the Olympics to reporting on this crisis.
Yeah, and this is such a great, intense, emotional film. How did you pack so much drama in when most of the setting takes place in a TV studio?
Yeah, I think we have to give the credit there to the real Jeffrey Mason, who we met before we wrote the script. We were deep in research, and we thought we were, and we were like getting the contact to him, and we heard, okay, he's a producer. He was a producer back then for ABC, and we just wanted to hear what he experienced that day as part of the whole media aspect. And then he talked us through his 22 hours, and we thought this is going to be like a 30 minute Zoom call, but it turned out to be like 2 hours because it was so thrilling the way he told it. And we wanted to know more details and more details and more details. And then afterwards, Tim and I will look at each other and say, well, maybe we just found our movie because it really it was so interesting what they had to accomplish that day, what they had to invent that day, because it was never done before, and what they had to ask themselves that day. So this was really a turning point in media history, and this is something we as filmmakers could really relate to, like the questions they had to ask themselves, the challenges they had to overcome, and yeah, in the end, it was almost like a submarine movie. We thought because all those people within this closed room, just having like the monitors as windows to the outside world, and that immediately, yeah, was intriguing to us to try to make this as nail biting as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add that, like, from the director's point of view now, when shooting this, that actually was part of the main challenge that I found so interesting. How can I actually do a movie that more or less takes place in one room? And I actually would say that there are a lot of examples also in film history that have proven that the opposite can be true, that a reduction in space can actually lead to a heightened tension. I mean, you know these movies, 12 Angry Men, Moritz mentioned submarine movies, the Rear Window by Hitchcock. Recently we had especially in the original, that was such a great film.
The Guilty, you mean?
The Guilty,
Yeah.
exactly. Or I also want to quote Paul Greengrass's United 93, that also tells the story of a broad event from a very distinctive perspective. So, um, and for me, it was like, yeah, also with the DP and with the editor, it was always a discussion. Like with the DP, we said like, how can we approach each scene a little bit differently? With the editor, we said like, how can we keep the tension, although everything is in that room? And I want to add, of course, the monitors are a big, great opportunity for us to open the world there, right? But our movie is also, in a way, and Hitchcock already knew that this is can sometimes be even more interesting, is not to see things, right? It's actually more about sometimes what they don't see than what they see.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the other challenges that you faced making this movie?
I think speaking as a scriptwriter, it was find or like composing all the gems we found, like the hidden gems we found in research, because it was so much details. And I think it was like finding the right rhythm to it and not like overboarding it with stuff we found interesting, but that's not like part of our story. And on the other hand, I think this is always the most like difficult part in screenwriting is finding the right ending. Because as you know, I mean, this like Jeffrey Mason told us that the whole day felt like a rush for them. That it was like it was over within a second for them. They tried to make it happen. They tried to make it right. And it only hit him when he was like sitting back in his hotel room that what really happened. And we always thought maybe we could end there, but then we said, no, we're telling this story within this room. So it ends at the parking lot for him where he like sits down in his car again. It's not it's like the morning hours again, but the whole world has changed, and that's it. So we didn't try to make it too much about like personal arcs, more than like what they did in that moment.
Absolutely. I can add again. This is funny. You can always answer it from the writer side, and I can do from a practical director's point of view. It might be a little bit more boring answer, but when directing it, it wasn't boring at all. It was thrilling actually to deal with that monitor wall all the time. Might look easy in the movie, but to shoot something like this, because we wanted to avoid that we have green screens on the monitors. We wanted to have real images, and on top of that, we wanted it to be monitors that are from the time. And on top of that, we wanted them to actually work in a way that this control room worked. So when John Margaro would give a direction as the director of the broadcast, that it would actually have an effect on the monitor wall. So we had to coordinate all of that. Plus, it was a mix of original footage that was there on that screens mixed with footage that we did reshoot, partly with extras, partly with the actors. So it was quite complex to bring all of that together. And also the editing then plays an important part to organically, as I think it is now, organically weave together in the film.
Yeah. I love the line in the film where Marianne, the German translator, says, I'm not my parents," after after a rant from an American about the Nazis. Where did that come from?
Well, you have to know that Marianne is not based on a true character. She's based on many true characters. There were like translators like her were provided by the Olympic Games to all the studios and broadcasters. And on the other hand, ABC tried to grab every German on that day that could do translations or finding out informations. Even Rune Arlich's driver had to jump in as a translator. So we tried to bring them all together in one character, and then also try to give her that spirit of this young German generation that was putting so high hopes in these serene games, how they called it. And I was born and raised in Munich. My parents were born and raised in Munich, and my parents are exactly that age. So I know about that about that hopes and about that perspective very well. And we gave her that there is some context why, for example, why there wasn't like armed police in the Olympic Village, and what Germany tried to achieve by putting up this unprecedented technical apparatus to show the games to the whole world. And I think there's like a lot of context within that one sentence.
Yeah, I would agree. Thanks, Jason, for bringing up that line, because I actually also think that this is one of my favorite moments in the movie, actually, when she says that, because that line immediately serves two purposes. One is what Moritz just described, that it makes clear that Leonie Benesch represents that generation that is so important for the historical context of when that movie happened, that it was close to World War II, and she represents a generation that tried to free themselves from the past, also from what their parents are like, yes, from World War II. And the other thing is, of course, that answer also defines her as a strong and character, right? Somebody who actually dares to give contra to Bader, who quite attacks her quite harshly from the side.
Yeah, it's such an interesting part of the movie. I feel like, because we don't see that perspective, in film very often. Uh, how do you think the current generation feels about that time period in history?
Well, I can just speak for myself that I, of course, was influenced by my parents, and I think I really can understand what kind of hope they put in that day, and it was like a new, young, liberal Germany, and it was maybe too naive to host an event that big somehow. So I really like understand the frustration and the tragedy they felt that day, and yeah, and this event is still, I mean, at least in Munich, but I think in whole Germany, well known as an example of what can happen, even if you have like the right if you want to do the right thing.
Yeah, I want to add that um, well, if you ask about the young generation, because of course, I also was like, we were thinking, how will young people respond to the film? And by now, I have spoken to a few people actually after the film. First, I was surprised about how many people actually didn't know before on what happened. And then, especially the young people who are used to have this very new technology, and have everybody of them has a camera and the TV in their pocket now, right? In a way, uh, they all said like, oh, for them it was so interesting to see how long it back then still took for an image to actually go on air, and how to see the whole process of how physical also TV making was still back then, and that it made them, through that historical context, make them reflect on how we consume the media and news today, and that's exactly what we wanted to achieve.
Yeah. Do you guys have any favorite moments or scenes from the film?
Well, I think my favorite scene is the last scene between John Magaro and Leonie Benesch, like Jeffrey Mason and Marianne, because it shows how actors can achieve something that you can't achieve on the page, because it was the dialogue was longer, and it was more written out, and with rehearsal and with shooting, we could leave like sentence after sentence out because it was in their faces, and that was really impressive for me, that they showed it and they didn't have to tell it anymore. And so I love that scene because it was really an example of how a team can accomplish something with everybody from their from their side. So that was a great team effort, and I love that scene.
Yes, that's also one of my favorite ones. The other one I would mention maybe right now is the uh, shortly before they go live, and they are having a discussion in the hallway because they don't want to talk in front of the whole crew on what they do if actually something violent happens in front of the camera. Because in a way, this is in a nutshell also our film. You see there that these are sports people that are suddenly confronted with reporting on a crisis. That's of course an important part of the premise. And you see why we chose the perspective of ABC Sports, because there were also other news outlets there or sports broadcasters there, because they were the only ones to have a live camera on site. And so they had to decide, oh, they were live compared to the others. Like, that, of course, is a important part of the narrative. Apart from that, I would say I like how the editing, actually, the editor, Hans-Jörg, made the whole film in a way into one scene. I think the whole film, for me, sometimes I think it feels like one big scene, because, of course, because everything takes place in that room, and because you have always the same ensemble, more or less, in the scenes. So I would say, yeah, that's September. Yeah, that I like how Hans-Jörg made the whole film into one scene.
Yeah, those are great scenes. I write friends of Comic-Con. Have you guys ever been to Comic-Con before?
I've
There's
never
one
been, unfortunately. You've been?
in Munich. Yeah, Munich has quite a
Ah,
like it's a small but a very strong comic community, like of comic artists, and they have one festival a year, and I really love it, and I try to support them as much as I can by buying the graphic novels there because I really love it as an art form.
Yeah.
so Basel, they also have something similar. That's not
Yeah,
Comic Con, but it's something similar there. I also did
yeah,
go with my nieces, and they love it. I also love it, and I, of course, always follow the Comic Con in the States because you learn a lot about the new releases that you're excited about, and I just love the whole passion that is at this event. You
yeah.
know, it's like you've this. Yeah, that's what I love about it.
Well, thank you guys very much. I wish you guys the best of luck at the Oscars.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jason.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it too.
Yes, we need it. We have a strong competition, very
Yes.
great films that we are there.
Yeah,
Have the
yeah,
honor to be part of,
yeah,
being part of that group to be nominated. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's well deserved for you guys. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Means a lot. Thank you.